Well, good evening, everybody. We'd like to welcome you tonight to our Tuesday, October 2nd, 2018 Hendersonville Regional Planning Commission meeting. And we'd like to note that we do have a quorum in place. And we're missing Commissioner Atchley and Commissioner Roberson. Everyone else is in attendance tonight, so we're going to call this meeting to order. We have an opening prayer tonight, and I'm going to ask Commissioner Millsaps if he would. We can all stand and let's have a word of prayer.
Father, we approach your throne of grace tonight, grateful for the opportunity that has been given to us to work on behalf of the development and the future of our city. We thank you, Lord, and we ask you to guide us tonight. Help us, Lord, to pay attention, to be receptive to a wide range of recommendations. Help us, Lord, to serve our fellow citizens and our colleagues in city government in a way that would bring honor and glory to your name. Lord, I would ask that you would see our nation's need to have harmony. I pray, Father, for those who currently are in the eye of the storm and those who are being washed under. A month from tonight, Lord, the polls will have closed. Give us all wisdom. Be with those in authority. Help us, Lord, to have grateful hearts that you allow us to live in this great nation of ours. We approach your throne of grace, Lord, thanking you for blessing us all. In Jesus' sweet name, and amen.
Amen. Thank you, Commissioner Millsaps, for that prayer. We'll move on to our public hearings tonight. We have a request by GBN Partners to amend the Glenbrook North Retail Final Development Plan to approve the conditional use of a quick service restaurant or a restaurant, which is currently listed as a conditional use for the property located on the north side of New Shackle Island Road, east of Glenbrook Way, as shown on Sumner County Property Tax Map 144-104.05. And we have two speakers tonight. The first one is Ellen Sell of GPD Group, and if you would come to the microphone, and we'll entertain your comments now. If you would just introduce yourself and thank you.
Hi, I'm Ellen Selly. I'm with GPD Group, and I'm here representing the franchisee for Taco Bell going into the Glenbrook North. And we did receive comments from both Lauren and Timothy, and we've been working through those. So I think everything, we're in agreement, and we're ready to move forward. So we're here to answer any questions that you guys might have or anyone in the public might have tonight.
Thank you very much, and we'll come back to that here in a few moments. The next one is Bill Nichols. Am I right? Okay. Mr. Nichols, if you would just introduce yourself and hear your comments.
My name is Bill Nichols. I live at 62 Valley Brook Drive here in Hendersonville. I also own the property, probably the closest residential property to this matter on the agenda tonight, at 103 Creekwood Lane. Our batting average hasn't been too great going up against corporate expansion. We did win when Palm Oil came to town, wanted to put a transfer truck location at Glenbrook. We won that one. We didn't want to see 40 semi-tractor trailers coming in all hours of the day and night with possibly hazardous material. We lost the Glenbrook development by one vote. That was close, but we lost that one. We also lost the initial development that's, again, on the agenda tonight because of the proximity to Creekwood subdivision. We know it's going to be approved. There's no question about that. We are against it, particularly the fact that it is a fast service type of restaurant. Don't know what the hours are going to be. A Taco Bell may be open from 10 in the morning till 10 or 11 at night. I don't know. What I would caution the Planning Commission on, obviously traffic is going to be the main concern. Knowing that there's going to be cars coming and going, I would just encourage this body to implement restrictions in the left turn off of New Shackle Island in the northbound lane. You've got several areas in Hendersonville where cars are turning into an exit driveway. I point out Walgreens on Main Street, Speedway on West Main Street, Lowe's on East Main Street. So I don't know how it's going to be prevented for cars that are headed north on New Shackle turning into this establishment. Again, it's going to be a lot of traffic coming and going. Glenbrook already has I'll just call it an automotive food court with Chick-fil-A, Dairy Queen, Texas Roadhouse. That's a dine-in, I understand that. But so it already has a so-called food court. I think once you get outside of that immediate area, you're looking for traffic problems. But I'll just say this finally. I would encourage you to look at Gallatin, where they put in concrete medians on the street that prevent, in this case, would prevent a left turn lane or left turn into the establishment. Thank you.
Thank you very much. That was all of the speakers, so we'll declare that hearing closed. And now we're going to move on to item number 3, which is request for information assistance. Are there any? Okay, we'll move to item number 4, additions to the agenda. Do we have anything? Mr. Millsaps.
I'd move that the third item on our consent agenda, item 18-068-001, be moved to the consent calendar.
Okay, that would be under the item number 9, site plans that Mr. Millsaps is talking about, which is 18-066-000, excuse me, 18-068-001, which is a residence, and he is asking that this be moved to the consent agenda. Am I correct, Mr. Millsaps?
Yes, you're correct. I'm sorry.
Okay,
I was wrong
yeah.
with that number.
So we have a motion. Do we have a second? Second. Okay. Any discussion? All in favor say aye.
Aye.
Okay, that is moved to the consent agenda. Thank you very much. All right, now we're going to move on to the minutes of September 4th, 2018. Do I have a motion?
So moved.
Mr. Millsaps makes the motion. Do I have a second? Second by Ms. Petrelli. Any discussion? All in favor say aye. Any opposed? Any abstained? Okay, oh, good. Okay, very much. Thank you very much. Our consent agenda items, once again, we have now 3 items on there. Stone Ridge Phase 2, Waterford Village Phase 4, and what we just put on there, the 18-068-001. Do we have a motion to group and accept? So moved by Mr. Millsaps. Second? Second by Mr. Lee. Any discussion? All in favor say aye.
Aye.
Very good. There are no final plats. Now we move on to item number 8, which is preliminary and final development plans. And tonight we are hearing the Glenbrook North retail conditional use, and we're going to move to Mr. Free to start the progress on this.
Yes, thank you, Chairman. I want to give a little bit of an overview. Timothy Whitten may be discussing this as we move a little bit forward with it. What this is what's before you tonight is a little unique in that it's a final development plan that is utilizing a conditional use. So instead of a conditional, and typically a conditional use would go to the Board of Zoning and Adjustments in order to do a conditional use. But if you have a planned development and that something is listed as a conditional use, then the Planning Commission serves as the BZA in that process, and that's why we're here this evening. But I wanted to give an explanation. There's some confusion relating to this issue, and I kind of wanted to give some history of kind of where we're at tonight on looking at this quick service use as a conditional use in this particular plan development. Back when the original preliminary development plan was done and approved back in 2015, it was done, and the approval, it's kind of questionable whether this was listed as a permitted use or as a conditional use. And me and the staff, and I believe the developer and his staff as well, have kind of went back through all of the information and the documents and listened back to the Planning Commission meetings and the BOMA meetings to kind of decipher was the use that they were talking about, was it a conditional use or was it a permitted use? And the reason that we were looking at that is that the document as submitted by the developer for the preliminary development plan had it listed as quick service or just fast food uses with a drive-through, had those listed as conditional uses. And there was nothing in the language of all of the discussion that really clarified that. We were really looking for a clarification on that. To further complicate it, I think it's questionable, it's very possible, and maybe someone that was here when that discussion was happening back in 2015 could recall, but we even checked back with the previous director to see if he had some clarity on it, and he did not have clarity on it as well. But looking at it, I definitely can see where, in looking back to it, there wasn't anything with clarity I could say, oh, there we go, this really was a permitted use, or this was a conditional use. But the document, what was submitted and what was approved on the plan, which could have been an error, but it was approved, was a conditional use. Then here's where it gets a little bit complicated. It's questionable whether that possibly was it could have been approved as a permitted use. It's just not fully definable. Here's where it gets complicated. Is then about less than a year later, then the final development plan is submitted, and there was C-store that was taken off, like a convenience store. They wanted to do a convenience store there, so that was taken off. So when the submission for the final development plan was done, the uses, the list of the uses and everything, still had quick service as a conditional use, but it had crossed out the C-store or the convenience store that was removed in the preliminary development plan. So it's possible in the preliminary development plan that, and I can't define it because I could not hear something that told me for sure when they were talking about use, whether they were talking about a permitted use or conditional use. But what happened is, regardless of what happened there, is that actually, that if it was an error, that error moved forward to the final development plan, and then we approved the final development plan that had it listed as conditional use. So as we look at that this evening, that is a little bit of it's very cloudy on that thing. I think in looking at it, just my own evaluation we exhaustively spent hours looking at this and listening to the tapes. I would say definitely in that preliminary development plan, I have no doubt in what the developers were saying. They had no idea that was a conditional use. They thought it was a permitted use. So I think that very clear from the comments and the way they were talking. I could not define from the Planning Commission and the planning staff whether they thought it was a conditional use permit they were talking about or a permitted use. Then when it gets to BOMA, I'm not for sure with the discussion whether they really realized it was a conditional use or a permitted use as well. So if that kind of helps as we're evaluating this evening. But looking at it as we're doing this, the developer has a restaurant that wants to locate here, and then, what could occur is one or two things. If there was some definite thing or evidence that the planning commission had, I guess you could say, oh, wait a minute, that's clearly, it was a permitted use back then, and that's just an error, and maybe we could correct that. But if we don't have that definitive, then the only way to really fully resolve it is to resolve it with looking at this as a conditional use. I think it's very important, though, and I think representatives from Taco Bell are here this evening, and that's the restaurant they're looking at, but that if a motion is made to approve this as a conditional use, I think it's important, given everything that I just explained, that this be, if it's approved, that it be approved not specifically as Taco Bell, but that it's approved as a quick service restaurant. And probably further clarifying that that's on Lot C, the approval of Lot C as a quick service restaurant, because that's this remaining lot that it's been on. And I'm open to answer any questions, and the developer may have something to comment on that as well. But it's a confusing thing, and it's one of those things like, if I was an NFL referee, this is one of those things that I've got all the camera angles, but there's just one camera angle that I don't have that I didn't hear and I was hoping to hear that really clarified, oh, okay, wait a minute, this is just an error. We can fix that. But I couldn't get conclusive evidence to do that. But I definitely feel this is in question on whether this was approved without additional information. It's questionable to me on whether this was or was not approved. So in lieu of that, the best I can do is go to the approved plan and go to the document which says it's a conditional.
Ms. McCormick.
Okay, so I have a few questions in terms of kind of in that same vein of what you're talking about. So am I right or wrong that we had a C-store that came to us a while back, a couple of years ago or so, that we ultimately, I think, voted down based on a traffic issue there and the ability to turn and navigate trucks? Does anybody else remember that?
That is this.
That is the exact
Yeah,
lot.
that got the C-store, I think to summarize the preliminary development plan process, the developer wanted to add the uses of one C-store and one quick service restaurant. And then there was concern about traffic issues and all of that. And then I think what the developer did is, hey, I got to have one or the other one, so I'll give up the C-store if I could just keep the restaurant, quick service restaurant, because I need that. The wording was needed to make the project viable. So this is what you're talking
Okay,
about.
so then my memory also serves me correctly, my memory serves me correctly, that I remember there being something about potentially a limit in the number of quick service restaurants in that area as well. Am I right?
One. In the motion that was approved from the Planning Commission, it was that it was one quick service restaurant, and that was the amendment that was made to the approval to add one quick service restaurant use. It just didn't clearly define as a conditional use or as a permitted use. If the plan hadn't said conditional, then the assumption would be, hey, it's permitted. But that's the only conflict, so yes.
Okay, so far,
Tracking.
I'm
Okay.
killing it right
You
now
are.
on memory, which is scary.
Your memory serving better than mine
I
right
mean,
now.
I just was
guarantee.
thinking that. All right, that's it for me.
Okay, so what we have here is a plan that has been approved for a quick service restaurant, or a restaurant, for a conditional use. And we know for a fact that, of course, there's going to be a site planning process. Am I correct, Ms. Free?
And they have submitted that today for
Okay.
the November meeting.
And based on the comments that we heard, we do not really, do we have anything on that site plan to address, Cal, the traffic issues that were mentioned? Do you know? Yeah, go ahead.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman. Cal Gentry, Southeastern Building. I believe they just have some issues to work out on the architectural renderings, and I think all the other comments have been agreed to
Okay.
on the, once you get to site plan.
Specifically, though, about the traffic concerns, are we, Timothy, can you weigh in on that? Have we got any on the, go ahead.
Well, when the preliminary development plan, the final, well, mainly the preliminary development plan was under consideration, the traffic, as you may recall, was discussed pretty extensively. So all those traffic concerns were reflected in that master plan. That master plan, with the access off of New Shackle, which I believe is right in, right out. Sarah, you may have to help me with that.
Yes.
And then full access on Glenbrook. All that was hammered out with that master development plan.
Okay.
This request is just for that.
Lot C.
Lot C. So it doesn't have any impact on those accesses that have already been established by the master plan.
And our traffic study included QSR as a use in it as well.
Right.
Okay, Mr. Lee.
Yeah, I was just going to affirm what Timothy had said. I do recall an extensive discussion and some clarification in terms of traffic and access. That was a major piece of what we discussed in that, which I think would address some of the concerns of the Creekwood residents, maybe not all of the concerns, that there would be increased traffic there. But that's the only point that I was going to make, that we did discuss that at length when this was approved.
Okay. So with that being said, do we have any other comments or questions for the developer, or for Mr. Free, or for Mr. Witten? Mr. Lee.
I had one, and I know we don't know that for sure this is going to be a Taco Bell. We're not going to approve it as Taco Bell if we do approve it. But I just wanted to clarify that the plan is not to close another Taco Bell and open this one. This would be an additional one to the facility that is already on Indian Lake. Is that correct?
That's correct.
Okay, if we could, can you give us a little bit of idea of what the service hours would be? That was mentioned in the hearing, and kind of let us know what all that is going to be.
Yes, I specifically asked the franchisee that, and he said it would be between 6 a.m. and 3 a.m., but that could be pared down to close earlier on weekdays. But those are the general hours.
Okay, do we stipulate that, Mr. Free, or can we, or what's our legal on that,
I mean, you can as a condition, if you,
since it's conditional use?
since it's a conditional use, you could do that as long as it was reasonable, it was a reasonable
Reasonable.
condition. Considering you just have to consider the whole location, the business, and the area that it's in, it's in a business area.
Well, reasonable would be whatever other businesses around there would be.
Probably.
If we go, and would that be done here or at the site plan level?
Well, it would have to be done here. If you put limits on it, it would probably have to be done here. Mr. Witten may be able to
Mr. Witten?
address that.
You're asking about the limits on the time?
Yes, sir.
That has been done in the past for master development plans.
Okay. So give us some guidance on hours. I don't know what the present hours of the establishments there are, but I think that would be a kind of a rule of thumb for us if we're going to do that.
Yeah, I don't know what the current hours are. I don't believe that no time restrictions have been put into place for that master plan. There aren't currently any. But I don't know what hours are. I know next door to the restaurant, there's a Batteries Plus, there's a dentist office. I'm not sure what's in that third tenant space.
A nail salon.
A nail salon. And then the shopping center that's being built behind there, I don't know what those tenants will be.
Okay. Ms. McCormick, you got anything?
My question is not service hour related, but it's just to make sure I understand your answer on the traffic issue. So for that particular lot, and Commissioner Lee is exactly right. I mean, we really spent a lot of time and our concern about traffic and congestion and the ability to safely get in and out of whatever establishment would be put on that lot, based on how awkward the layout is right there. So is your answer that that would be restricted to a right-in, right-out, or no?
I believe that there currently is a right-in, right-out, isn't there, Cal? That's the access on New Shackle is a right-in, right-out that takes you back into this vacant lot in the dentist office next door.
Okay, so essentially, what Mr. Nichols' concern was, is the ability to turn left
Right.
from
So you would
northbound,
not-
so that would be restricted.
Correct.
Okay.
You might have C 100, and that will show the island there restricting that turn movement.
Mr. Lee, did you have something that you wanted to say?
Well, I haven't done a scientific analysis, but having been a Panera Bread customer, I mean, most of those facilities in Dairy Queen, they're more like a 9 or 10 p.m. sort of closing. And I, for one, would probably not be in favor of a 3 a.m. Opening. To me, I don't know that there's any magic, but I would think midnight would certainly be late enough, even for a fast food operation.
Okay, Mr. Free?
Yeah, one of the things that I might weigh in is definitely typically time restrictions could be placed on a planned development or in this process, a conditional use of a use within a planned development. So that's certainly there. Just to weigh in on what I kind of explained before about the whole preliminary development plan and the question about that on the, I came to a clarity only because that's what was on the plan, but listening through everything that was on the preliminary development plan and everything was said and everything, it's certainly up in the air generally about whether that was already approved as a planned development or a conditional or a permitted use versus a conditional use. I just wanted to share that.
Okay. Okay. Ms. McCormick?
Okay. Well, I definitely think that 6 a.m. to 3 a.m. is excessive. I do not want us to, I would say, unfairly burden this property when the others don't have restrictions. So my issue is if Chick-fil-A, Panera, Dairy Queen, whoever didn't have those restrictions, I don't think it's fair to place them on this one. However, again, 6 a.m. to 3 a.m. is a bit much.
Yes. Okay, so I think what I'm hearing is that all of us on the commission feel like that the 3 a.m. timeframe is a little bit excessive. And I would weigh in and say, because of the proximity of the neighborhoods across the street, I think it would be fair to say 6 a.m., of course, they're open for breakfast, I understand that. I understand all of that, but it could be that the franchisee would take a look at the closing hour and be commensurate more with what's in the neighborhood and those restaurants that are mentioned. So take that into account. I will take, I think Mr. Free's wisdom here is really good, and I think Ms. McCormick's wisdom, we don't want to place restrictions on this one that are not placed on somebody else as well. So I think that's fair. All right, so we will not put that on there. However, it would be, and we might bring this up at site plan again, but that kind of a stipulation about the closing hour. So,
Okay, I will bring it up with him.
thank you. Thank you.
Mr. Chairman, would this be our only opportunity to put a time restriction on?
According to Mr. Free, if we were going to do it, it would be now. We'd have to do it. But once again, I think it would be the closing hour that I think I'm hearing is the But once again, that's not been placed, as Ms. McCormick brings up, it's not really been placed on these other restaurants.
Well, it hasn't been placed, but it hasn't been a problem
No, it has
either.
not.
And none of them are in that practice. I'm just concerned with crime and safety issues.
Yes.
I mean, even in Nashville, we see when most of these horrific crimes, many of them occur, it's after midnight. And I think it would be a stress on our police and others to be able to do that. So I don't mind saying I have a real concern with the 3 a.m. Although I may be the first one looking for a taco at 1 o'clock in the morning and I can't find one.
There are several that do that. Cal?
Yes, sir. I'm just checking hours at some of the other tenants in there. Kroger's is open 24 hours a day. I didn't have a chance to check some of the others. I think Ms. Ellen is willing to give up the early closing during the weekdays, if that would be of benefit, and keep the hours later on the weekends, if you would consider that.
Okay, so on the weekdays, what would be the closing?
Midnight.
Midnight, and then on weekends, which would be defined as Saturday night and Sunday night, or Friday nights?
Friday, Saturday.
Friday, yeah, Saturday and Sunday.
Okay, so Monday through Thursday, it would be midnight,
Yes, sir.
and then Friday, Saturday, and Sunday, it would be 3
3
a.m.
a.m.
Sunday through,
We said Friday, Saturday, Sunday. You might want Thursday too. I've seen it go both ways on that.
okay. I really feel like that the wisdom of Mr. Lee here, and I think that if we could make it happen Monday through Thursday, midnight, and then Friday, Saturday, and Sunday, like you said.
3 a.m.
Yeah. Well, they said Friday, Saturday, and Sunday, I believe.
Yes.
Would it be possible to agree to discuss this at the site plan level after she's had an opportunity to discuss it with the franchisee?
If
We-
let me think.
Let me get an opinion on that. I have no problem with that if we can legally do that.
I don't think we can either.
Okay.
Yeah. I don't think we can at this point. Yeah. I don't think we can at the site plan. There's not a mechanism in the site plan that deals with time of the thing. Really, the appropriate, this is an appropriate time to look at it. The more appropriate time really would have been at the preliminary development plan and the final development plan. So we're a little late to it at this point, but there's still an opening, to do something. And, I mean, if something could be worked out where they're agreeable to it, to something that's agreeable to the commission, then that would work. But at the site plan, I think even if they agreed to it, this is the proper time, this is the last chance
Understood.
to do that.
Okay.
Unless it came back to revisit it at that time. But that would mean coming back again to do the conditional use again, and then maybe timing that. I don't know about the notice. I think we could do the notice where it could be timed again, but, okay. Yeah. It might be better to resolve it tonight if it's possible.
Okay, well, let's go ahead and do that.
We could do Thursday, Friday, Saturday to 3 a.m., and it will be economics driven. So if there's no one coming in at 3 a.m., then it will close down early, but they just want to have that option right off the bat. So would that be better with you guys, Thursday, Friday, Saturday night, to have the late nights?
It's okay. I have no problem with that. What about the commissioners? Ms. Petrelli?
I just have a question. I checked the 2 area Taco Bells, and on the weekends, they're only open till 2 a.m. So,
And that's Friday and Saturday.
yeah,
Okay.
thank you.
Again, just the option, and if it will be economics driven, like I mentioned. If there's no business, it won't stay open that late. they'll change their hours and they'll adjust accordingly. They're not going to staff it if there's no one coming.
Okay, I think that it would be fair. The 2 a.m. is fine. That is commensurate with the other Taco Bells that are in town. So I think that would be, and going with the hours that you said, Thursday, Friday, and Saturday, till 2 a.m. I think that would be a good compromise for all of us.
And then till midnight on
Sunday through Thursday.
Sunday through Thursday.
Well, yeah,
Wednesday.
Sunday through Wednesday, yeah. All right, is that clear, Lauren? You got that? Okay, so are there any more questions for the developer? So, Mr. Free, if you would go over one more time now how this motion needs to be crafted, and then commissioners will entertain a motion to approve.
I think the appropriate way to do the motion would be to approve the conditional use of a quick service restaurant on Lot C of the development, limiting the hours as we just discussed, which was Sunday through Wednesday till midnight.
And then Thursday through.
Yeah, Thursday through Saturday at 2 a.m.
Yes.
And that would be the only, that a motion that would reflect that would be appropriate motion.
Okay, do we have such a
Yeah.
motion?
Oh, I'm sorry, with staff comments.
And approve with all staff comments.
The findings of fact that are in the staff
Oh, yeah,
comments.
I'm sorry.
Yes. Pardon me?
That's true.
Findings of fact.
Findings of fact.
Yeah, I'm sorry. Thank you, Timothy. That's right.
Okay, Mr. Lee, I want to
So
let you
moved.
make this motion.
So moved, Mr. Chairman.
So on the findings of fact, let's go over that real quick. We would,
There, A, B, C, and D.
okay, we would also find in this motion that the conditional use is designed and located and proposed to be operated, that the public health and safety and welfare will be protected, that it will not adversely affect other properties in the area, that it conforms to all applicable provisions of this ordinance for the district in which it was located or to be located, and that in the specific location proposed is consistent with the spirit and intent of the ordinance of the land use transportation plan. And that needs to be notated in the motion. Mr. Lee, you make such a motion?
Yes. So moved.
Mr. Lee makes the motion. Do we have a second?
Second.
We have a second by Ms. Silkwood. Any more discussion? All in favor say aye.
Aye.
It's approved, so ordered.
Thank you.
Thank you.
We now move to some site plans. And the first one is Chick-fil-A renovation. Who's handling this one?
Mr. Whitten.
Mr. Whitten.
Chick-fil-A is, they're wanting to expand their drive-through to make it a double-lane drive-through. I'm sure y'all are aware of the extensive traffic they get through that site. So their solution to that is the double drive-through lanes. They would like to add a standalone canopy over, part of one of those drive-through lanes on the south side of the building, and then add an attached awning on the north side of the building. They would also be adding a small addition to the rear of the building. And they have agreed to all staff comments.
Okay, do we have a motion?
So moved.
Motion by Millsap, second by Ms. Stringfellow. Any discussion? All in favor say aye. All right, we have no other site plans, no sketch plats, no preliminary plats, no rezone request. Staff-approved projects that are approved: the Joe Saunders property final plat, KFC remodel, Mansker Farms Phase 18, Section 1, resub lots 843 and 44. Staff-reviewed projects pending, Indian Lake subdivision, Section 17, and Norman Creek Phase 1B. Those staff-approved projects that are approved and pending. There's no other. Planning Director comments.
No comments, Chairman.
There's no comments by the Planning Director. Do we have a motion to adjourn?
Mr. Chairman, I move we stand adjourned.
Do I have a second? Second by Mr. Altheiser. We are adjourned.
First Tuesday, November.